Kia ora, good evening. I'm Hannah Wilkins. Prime Minister Jacinda Arden shocked the nation this week after announcing her decision to step down as the nation's leader. Arden revealed she plans to leave the top role by early February and set the date for the new general election in October.
Jacinda Arden choking back tears as she announced her resignation to media this afternoon in Napier, where Labour is holding a caucus retreat.
And so today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February.
It was a surprise announcement, with the Prime Minister revealing she plans to step down from the job early next month. Arden says she made the decision over the summer break after deciding she no longer has enough in the tank to continue the leadership in an election year.
This has been the most fulfilling 5.5 years of my life, but it has also had its challenges.
Arden claimed the country's top job in 2017 at a time when tight housing supplies, growing homelessness and child poverty dominated political discussions across the south. The 2019 Christchurch mosque shootings focused international attention on the southern city, with Arden's leadership a feature among the coverage. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic ramped up the pressure, demanding a constant media presence. Jacinda Arden led the Labour Party to re-election in late 2020 and today revealed New Zealanders will go to the polls for the next general election on the 14th of October. The shock resignation will set the Labour Party scrambling to find a replacement leader, but Deputy Grant Robertson has confirmed he won't be seeking the job. The Labour Party caucus plan to vote for a new leader in 3 days' time. From the South today.
We know the next few years will not be easy.
Fire restrictions are in place across the south, including a total fire ban covering central Otago. NIWA is predicting the weather will continue to be hot and dry for the next month, creating a high fire risk for southern New Zealand.
Make sure to bring a torch on your next camping trip, as a mix of total fire bans and permit-only restrictions now cover most of the southern region. A total fire ban is now in place for Central Otago and the Queenstown Lakes districts, while a restricted fire zone covers most other areas in the south, from Waitaki through to Southland and across to the west coast.
We've gone into a total fire ban for the Lakes district and Central Otago, so that means no open air fires, and all permitted fires before that have been suspended.
Fire and Emergency New Zealand says the bans are vital to limit the risk of out-of-control vegetation fires that have caused devastation in recent dry summers. FENZ is warning locals and tourists to check the rules for their local areas and consider the conditions before undertaking any activities that could spark a fire.
So enclosed barbecues are still fine, but yeah, braziers, charcoal barbecues and parts are not. But you can check on checkitsallright.nz to whether you're allowed those types of barbecues or those types of fires.
NIWA is forecasting drier than usual weather across the eastern and lower South Island over the rest of summer, with fire bans likely to stay in place until late February or early March. Across the South today.
The Christchurch Arts Centre can once again have people stand on top its Observatory Tower after more than a decade of disrepair. The tower was damaged in the 2011 Canterbury earthquakes, with stonemasons using a mix of old and new tools to get it up to scratch.
Looking like new, this rebuilt Observatory Tower in the Christchurch Arts Centre shows little evidence of the damage it suffered during the 2011 earthquakes. That's thanks to the skill of some dedicated stonemasons, including Darren Harris, who was happy to share his specialist craft with the public.
Who remembers the observatory before the earthquakes? We all do. Yeah. I never saw it before the earthquake, so all I saw was the carnage afterwards, basically.
The complexity of the observatory's rebuild was of great interest to the visitors. There was a lot of work involved in its deconstruction, cataloguing, storage and finally reconstruction.
So my job is to basically rebuild and refit some of the new stone that needs to be refitted.
Due to the extent of the damage, the tower block had to be deconstructed before it could be rebuilt, using a mix of new and original blocks of basalt and Oamaru stone. The stonemasons catalogued the old stones for their future reuse, using historic black and white photographs as a reference.
So each area would have like the front of the doorway would be catalogued. So there is a plan there.
The stonemasons used both traditional and modern tools, working the stones to repair and restore the heritage building.
The biggest challenge would be trying to make it look like it hasn't been changed, but obviously it will look fresh and new because it's new stone.
The effects of weathering have already softened the appearance of the observatory's pristine refurbishment, giving it a similar look to before the earthquakes. In Christchurch, the South Today.
A nationwide egg shortage has left at least one Dunedin farmer unable to keep up with the heavy demand following on from the ban on battery cages. The shortage has led to some egg lovers panic buying hens, but experts are warning about the amount of work needed to keep the small animals.
Tending to his chickens and trying to keep up with the high demand for eggs. Battery cages for layer hens were made illegal this month as part of a 10-year plan which has contributed to a nationwide egg shortage. The most popular alternative for large suppliers is colony cages, which are still legal. However, the major supermarket chains have complicated the situation. Foodstuffs, which operates New World and Pack and Save, has pulled colony eggs from its shelves, while Countdown is planning to phase them out by 2025. Dunedin free-range egg farmer Josh Adam has been under the pump trying to fill in orders, but says there is only so much he can do with his 2,500 chickens.
I think it will come right eventually. It's just at the minute we've got rid of the battery hens and there's just a big hole in the market that we're trying to, so people, all the farmers are trying to grow as quick as we can, but there's only so fast you can grow. So
there's also a shortage of chicken feed. The sudden egg shortage has seen many people panic buying hens. Adam himself sold hundreds on social media in just 2 hours, but he's worried they won't be able to tend to the hens properly, with a number of people unaware of the work and cost that goes into their care.
They are a thing that you've got to look after 7 days a week, and they don't just eat scraps. You've got to feed them their grain and their mash that's got all the minerals and stuff that's in it, and that's getting fairly expensive now with the grain prices and all that, so they are quite a costly thing to keep.
The rules for keeping chickens vary between districts across the southern region, but with the exception of Dunedin, there's a limit on the number of hens that can be kept in urban areas. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Local fish and chip shops are feeling the pinch as rising food costs put pressure on the small businesses. There are warnings that customers can expect the price of their weekly scoop of chips to continue to increase, with no signs of relief.
Deep fried and covered in salt, hot chips are a cheap staple for Friday night takeaways, but that could be about to change. In Dunedin, local fish and chip shops have been forced to increase prices on their menus, as a worldwide potato shortage causes the cost of chips to rise.
Not as much for us because we use fresh potatoes, so luckily we've got a good relationship with our farmer who's been providing us chips for many years, so we haven't quite seen an increase like a lot would who are using a frozen chip. So we've been lucky that way, but there's certainly other things that are going up.
Chip prices from some bulk suppliers have increased by more than half, with Cairns Catering Supplies telling clients a 15-kilogram bag of chips will set them back $43. Best Cafe owner Jessica Marks is a seasoned chef and says all ingredients are increasing in cost, but believes it's important to have an open conversation with shoppers.
They're very understanding. I think everybody understands. There's a lot of information out there. People realise that prices are going up. People expect price increases in the menu, so we do always talk to our customers about it, just so that they're always aware, especially tourists. So yeah, most people are very, very understanding.
The North Island's recent bad weather has impacted the country's potato supplies, but there's hope the South Island's potato harvest later this year might bring some relief. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern Newsweek, the World Buskers Festival celebrates 30 years as Christchurch welcomes back its international guests. And secondary school students have a crash course in crime scene analysis as they get hands-on at Otago University. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Christchurch residents and visitors should carry a few gold coins with them this month as the World Buskers Festival returns to the central city. It's 30 years since the first festival was held, and the return of international acts is adding to the colour and variety this year.
Get ready folks, it's back again. Christchurch's favourite summer street event, the Bread and Circus World Buskers Festival, has returned to the city. It's the 30th anniversary of the festival, and organisers are promising 17 entertainment-packed days of breathtaking busking and special events.
Audiences love the immediacy of it. You know, that they're sitting there and it's happening right in front of their eyes. You know, there's no smoke and mirrors, and it's literally like happening there for you then and now, and you're really a part of the show.
Among the lineup of acts are a number of returning favourites, including Laser Kiwi, Pedro Tocaz, Fraser Hooper, plus 55 times Guinness World Record holder Space Cowboy. There's also plenty of newcomers to keep Canterbury crowds entertained, including clown duo The Twins Trip, action-packed spy-fi comedy Her Majesty's Secret Circus, and street magician Jason Mayer.
I think our local residents just really enjoy seeing people out on the streets and telling great stories and having fun and standing next to someone and having a good laugh with someone you don't even know.
Another new event this year is the Silent Disco Walking Tour, which will see crowds of participants dancing through the streets. The festival's also hosting the New Zealand premiere of the world's first wine-tasting comedy show, An Idiot's Guide to Wine. And organisers are tipping the Purple Rabbit as one of the event's hot tickets, about world-class misfits blending magic, circus and comedy into an R18 show.
The international performers are back, so there's performers happening across the city, and you'll see great local acts as well as internationals back to back.
The Bread and Circus World Buskers Festival takes place in a host of venues, both indoors and in outside spaces around the central city. Audiences can check out the full program of events online, with the festival running through until the last weekend of January. In Christchurch, the South today.
Sharks, big seas and a sore backside are just some of the dangers facing a world-first solo mission to ride around New Zealand on a jet ski. Adventurous Australian real estate agent Lindsay Warner stopped off in Dunedin this week to pick up some fuel supplies and share a few stories.
A close encounter on the high seas as Lindsay Warner passes a cruise liner on his way to Dunedin. The 64-year-old's on a mission to circumnavigate New Zealand solo on his jet ski. The intrepid Aussie's already completed a solo trip around Australia. He spent 89 days on the water for the massive 15,000 kilometre trip, which came with some unique risks.
Generally, the biggest concern was crocodiles up north. You had to be very much aware in shallow water when you come into beaches and those sort of things.
The seafaring real estate agent is now keen to be the first to attempt a similar trip around Aotearoa.
New Zealand hasn't been circled solo on a jet ski before. So I think there's more people climbing Mount Everest this year than there is going around New Zealand on a jet ski. So that kind of adds to my sense of adventure. Do something nobody's done before.
He admits the often bumpy ride is physically and mentally demanding, requiring a special dry suit, extra fuel and lots of Vaseline. The next stage of his 25-day trip will take him south to Riverton, then travelling up the wild west coast before crossing over to Wellington to continue the mission around the North Island. In Dunedin, the South today.
Invercargill is getting ready to host the New Zealand Disc Golf Championships in March. Interest in the sport has been growing across the country, and organisers are hoping to put New Zealand on the global map.
A big wind-up as disc golf player Calvin Cummins lets his frisbee or flying disc soar towards the goal. Invercargill is set to stage this year's National Disc Golf Championship after the city hosted the South Island Champs in 2022. 260 competitors have already registered for the ILT Southern Smash, including almost 50 players coming from overseas. Those numbers are set to make the Invercargill event the biggest disc golf tournament the country's seen.
So we're trying to put New Zealand as a whole on that disc golf radar, you know what I mean, make it an attraction for people to come here.
Johnny Ferrari helped build Queen's Park's first disc golf or frisbee golf course with his bare hands, and a few good men 5 years ago. The sport's been growing in popularity in Southland, with more than 60 dedicated members ranging in age from 7 to 83.
Quite a few of the juniors getting into it down here now, which is really good for the sport. More and more families are coming out playing. Being a free course to come play, it's really great for them all to get involved.
The sport's also popular across the country. Dunedin now has 2 courses, helping make the sport even more accessible for people to play.
And now in the last 10 years, the growth is just phenomenal. Just really many people taking it up. I mean, you know, you can spend several $100s on a whole swag of discs and a fancy bag to carry them in, or you can grab a paint bucket lid or a cake tin lid and hit the course.
The National Disc Golf Champs will be staged at Invercargill's Queen's Park Golf Club in early March, with the tournament free for spectators to come and check out what the sport's all about. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Secondary school students visiting Otago University earlier this week got a surprise when they stumbled across a staged crime scene. The fake murder investigation was just one of many ingenious activities created by the university to hook students into a future career.
Secondary school students from around New Zealand getting hands-on with a mock crime scene. It was one of a range of interactive activities set up by the University of Otago this week. Students from 177 secondary schools across the country are in Dunedin to take part in the university's hands-on event, aimed at giving them a taste of potential future study plans. After the initial crime scene surprise, the students got to work solving the murder mystery using cutting-edge methods.
So we've got a mock crime set up, and the students are going to be analysing different DNA samples that were found at the scene to solve the crime.
Staff and graduates who planned the event say the combination of group activities and practical exercises seems to be proving a hit with the potential students.
So they're getting exposed to a wide variety of experiments and getting to do a lot of hands-on science that they wouldn't normally be exposed to at school. So yeah, so they're absolutely loving the experience here at Otago.
The genetics course is just one of the faculties offering practical activities, with dissections, explosives and immersion tanks also on offer in an effort to pique their interest. Organisers are hoping the experiences will encourage many of the participants to return to Otago next year as fully enrolled students. In Dunedin, the South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, a trio of one family's prized possessions were on display this week at the Dunedin to Brighton Vintage Car Rally. And Canterburyans have their say on what's included in a new regional edition of a classic board game. Tēnā koe, welcome back. A trio of one family's prized possessions were on display this week at the Dunedin to Brighton Vintage Car Rally. Colin Pearce has collected and upgraded 3 vintage Sunbeam cars and showcased his efforts at the 2-day event.
Polishing the century-old motor car until it shines. It's taken Colin Pearce around 50 years to collect, store and repair 3 vintage Sunbeam 1216s from the 1910s. Now he's getting his cars ready to join this week's parade in the Brighton Vintage Car Rally. Finding and maintaining the vintage cars has been a family affair, with his children, wife and siblings helping to steer him in the right direction. His brother helped him find one Sunbeam near abandoned in a Southland paddock and missing some vital pieces.
The radiator was gone, the body was gone, the back axle was gone and the front axle was gone, wheels were all gone. So it was virtually only the engine, gearbox and chassis that was there.
And while the Sunbeam engines might be genuine, the cars aren't exact replicas of their 1900s era models, with Pearce admitting they've made a few upgrades.
I'm getting far too old to crack. I did up to about 10 or 15 years ago, used to have to crank them to start them, but now they've got an electric starter in them and press the button and away they go.
Pearce's vehicles will be on display on Wednesday morning in Dunedin's Octagon before the vintage cars make their way out to Brighton. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Southland stud farmers were pleasantly surprised at the latest ram sale in Gore as their prized animals went under the hammer. The stock were assessed by their genes, meat and wool quality, with one ram leading the flock.
This Blackdale stud Texel ram is part of a trend. It's the second year in a row this species of ram has achieved the top price at the annual Gore Ram Sale, with this particular animal selling for more than $15,000. That was about $4,500 down on last year's record top price, but its seller was still pleased with the result.
For 7, outstanding. Like I said, 8,000 or more for a top single-litre ram's good money, so 15,500. When they're absolutely chuffed.
The ram was one of several on offer to Southland farmers as people took stock of the animals at the Gore A&P showgrounds. Each ram is judged on a range of qualities including fertility, growth, meat and wool, with some farmers after specific attributes.
He's a nice clean ram with great colour. He's got excellent structure. He's got all the maternal attributes that we're looking to fuse into our own studs. So yeah, we've been looking for a ram. We're always looking for a good quality ram, and this guy fits the bill. So.
Around 90 rams were sold under auction during the day, some to syndicates of owners, with farmers keen to put the animals to work on their paddocks. In Gore, the South Today.
Young cricketers from across New Zealand and Australia have been gathering in Queenstown this week for the 7th annual Cricket Carnival. 12 high school cricket teams have been competing across 6 venues in hopes of winning the top prize.
Balls are flying as these young cricketers from across New Zealand and Australia take to the field for the 2023 Queenstown Cricket Carnival. The tournament's being hosted across 6 Queenstown pitches, including the Event Centre and Millbrook Resort. 12 high school teams will compete over 4 full days of cricket, with a combination of T20 games, plus limited over declaration matches. The Cricket Carnival's also welcoming back international competition, with 2 teams from across the ditch ready to take aim at the local boys.
Well, we've got 12 teams, 2 from Australia, one we have a reciprocal arrangement with, that's Orange from Western New South Wales, and a new one, the King's School from Sydney, who are a very strong cricketing school.
He says the schools returning each year get a lot out of the tournament, with the young players exposed to some good cricketing competition.
This year we've only set the draw for the first 2 days because we're going to see how strong the teams are. We don't want any mismatches, so after that we'll decide the next 2 days.
And there's potential for the Cricket Carnival to grow further in the future, with interest from schools as far away as India. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Canterburyans are being invited to have their say on what they'd like to see included in a new regional edition of a classic board game, Monopoly. A version produced for the Southland district last year proved a big hit, and now the Garden City is keen to play.
Christchurch is getting ready to pass go as popular board game Monopoly gets a Canterbury themed makeover. Submissions are now open for locals to suggest their favourite streets and properties, which could be included in a special regional edition of the classic game. The Christchurch game board could see traditional spots like Old Kent Road and Park Lane replaced with Cashel Street and the Cathedral. Custom versions of the game have previously been created for Auckland, Wellington, Palmerston North and Southland. The Monopoly sets are manufactured and distributed by Sydney-based company Winning Moves under licence from American company Hasbro. Across the ditch, the Aussie editions featured popular city landmarks rather than just streets, including Melbourne's MCG Cricket Ground and Sydney Harbour. And while having local place names may make the game more familiar, the rules won't change, ensuring Monopoly remains a challenging and frustrating game for many players. Canterbury's version of the game is expected to go on sale in October, with a retail price of around $70. In Christchurch, the South Today.
That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube to catch our news bulletins on demand. We'll see you again next week. Mā te wā.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.